What's up, guys? Zach Evanesh. This is going to be a Strong Life podcast, and Coach Reb Rock is going to be joining us live. I'm going to be taking some notes. Very excited to chat with Reb. He's a high school strength coach out in Texas, and when you get to see the videos he shares, I'm seeing athletes just performing flawless technique on exercises, and he doesn't even have the most upgraded weight room. He doesn't have bumper plates for everything. So you'll see kids doing cleans with maybe one plate is bumper plates, and then outside of that, he's got steel plates on there. But I love what I see from his program, and I believe he's been a high school strength coach 30 plus years. Man, if I recall, there's Coach Reb. Coach Reb, I think I'm going to try to invite you, request to join. So in the bottom, right here, Coach, you'll see a little plus sign. There we go, and we're going to go live. There we go. And we're going to pull the audio from this. So for those of you listening, might be a little bit of a delay. Oh, I think I could invite Coach Reb Rock, and let's see if that'll work. All right, hang tight. Little technical. Always technical stuff. It's a little bit of the downfall to using. It's always a little bit of the downfall to using Instagram. Coach Reb, try doing that one more time, and we'll be able to kick this off. Appreciate everybody hanging out a little bit. It says Coach Reb Rock is unable to join. Let's try that one more time, Coach. Sean, what's up, buddy? Appreciate you guys popping in. We will be able to have you guys ask some questions, but Coach Reb Rock and I are going to be chatting about life, training, of course, high school athletes, and some of his history. I love chatting it up with coaches who have a lot of history. Coach, let's try doing that one more time, please. Hit that request button. All right, let me see if I could do this. There we go. Invite. There you go. You've been invited to join. Yes. Hey, Coach.
How you doing?
I appreciate you taking the time. I've got my notebook ready to go. I'll be taking notes. So if you see me looking down, it's just because I'm taking notes. Very excited to have you here. I've been following.
Let me lower this a bit.
Yep.
Is that better?
Yes, that's perfect, Coach. So I came across your work a couple of years ago. You were on Travis Mash's podcast, and it was awesome. Then I start looking at your Instagram videos, and it spoke to me. I'm used to seeing these like beautiful upgraded weight rooms that look, even at the high school level, we're looking at weight rooms that are rivaling colleges. But really what stood out to me was the technical proficiency and then the culture of what I would see in your weight room. Your kids moved great. You didn't have bumper plates exclusively, yet they're doing cleans from the floor, and you got some of the steel plates. I love it. So I'd love if you could share a little bit of your background. I know you've been coaching. This has got to be like your 35th year, if I'm correct.
I'm on year 40.
I love it. That's amazing. So what if we backed up and just gave a little bit of your history? And you're in Texas, and I'm not sure if that's where you started and where you grew up. So would love to hear a little background.
Okay. I was born here in Texas, but I grew up in Arizona, and wound up, playing junior college football out there, and then was recruited and transferred to Indiana University. Was there for my last 3 years, and then back to Arizona, started my coaching career in Arizona. I went to my old high school for 2 years. I was at the junior college for 5. Left and went to New Mexico Highlands University, which is NCAA Division II. I was the defense coordinator and strength coach there. Was there for 3 years, and Arizona at that time was growing, but there wasn't, guys weren't getting recruited out of there. It was hard to get back then. Everybody wanted to be there. It was hard to get a teaching job to go with your coaching because they weren't connected. So like when I coached at my old high school, I worked 2 or 3 jobs so I could coach around that and then got a stipend. When I was at New Mexico Highlands, I recruited the Panhandle and South Plains of Texas, and I would go in these places that had nicer facilities at a 3A than I had seen since I was in Indiana. And you had if you were going to coach there, you had to be on faculty. So they had teaching jobs. So when I left Highlands, moved to Central Texas, about an hour north of Austin, and I didn't have a job. My parents were back there, and they lived in East Texas at the time, but didn't have a job. Wanted to get on a small 2A school for about 4 years. Was going through a divorce at that time, so it was a good situation because small towns, man, people take care of you. I had people watching because I was raising 3 little boys, and had, I'm on the sideline on Friday night and Thursday night, and I had a whole town watching my kids for me and stuff. So was there, and then I left there after about 4 years. I went to Copperas Cove High School, which was about 30 miles north. It was at that time 5A was the largest classification in Texas, and that's what they were. And was a position coach and coached powerlifting, and I did all the strength stuff. And I've been a strength coach everywhere I've been. I've been in charge of the strength program for the last 40 years. So I did that, and I landed there. It was a program that had been down for years. My boss had a great vision, and he had been there. He is just starting his 5th year when I got there, and he had turned them around. And I was there 19 years, and we went to the playoffs 17 times. Had some great players. The year before I got there, he had taken them over, and they had 1 winning and 1 non-losing season in the previous 30 years before him coming there in 1994. And he turned it around. Told them in 5 years he'd turn around. They all laughed at him. In 5 years, they went 4 rounds deep in the Texas 5A playoffs, which is saying something. They lost to Midland Lee. Cedric Benson was the running back on that team, who went on to be multiple-time All-American at Texas, played in the league for a number of years. But on that team, a guy named Charles Tillman was the defensive back. He played for the Bears for 13 years. But that team, and then I came in the next year and was with them. And in my 19 years there, we went to playoffs 17 times. So it was we not only turned it around, but we sustained it.
What is the ticket when you're going into a program that's struggling? Where do you think it starts? And also, when you mentioned your boss, what's that, the head football coach or the athletic director?
He was both. In Texas, at a lot of your big schools, especially one-horse towns, multi-district schools usually have an AD and then separate head coaches that are also athletic coordinators on their campus. But it was a one-horse town. So we had, 1 high school and 2 junior highs that fed it. So he was the athletic director and the head football coach. He came in and just turned the culture around. They didn't believe they could win. And the first year he was there, they had a winning season. Then they had a couple that after that followed were non-winning. So they'd always had the guys there. Everybody said, "Oh, they just don't have athletes." They'd always had them. And they were coached well. I don't know if you know who Hal Mummy is. He's the father of the air raid offense. And that air raid offense was developed at Copperas Cove High School when he was there. And he had 1 non-losing season. He was coach of the year twice and only had 1 non-losing season. He never had a winning season. But he's a great coach. He's, been in the Division I level in college, and everybody that runs the air raid, they learned it from him. And Mike Leach was his offense coordinator, was his protege. So, But Coach Mummy had coached with my boss prior to at West Texas State back in the day. And he's the one that recommended my boss go for that job, or my old boss, Jack Welch. And he got that job and came in and basically set up a program. It wasn't, hey, we're going to win when we've got great athletes and we're going to not win when we don't. He wanted to build a program that was sustainable year after year, and he did that. It was based on track and powerlifting.
Who was
Go ahead.
who was the I guess like the mentor behind that program, or were there books? And what year was that? Talking about track and powerlifting. What year was that?
Well, he took over Cove in 1994.
Okay.
I came in 1995, and they already had the groundwork established. But he believed in track and more so track than powerlifting. But we did both of them because it wasn't just the running part, which is obviously huge, but he wanted multi-sport athletes, and he wanted people competing. So we took a running back that maybe not a true powerlifting guy to a meet. The goal was, hey, I'm in 11th place right now, coach, but I think I can get this guy here on this third attempt. I can get up to 10th, or I can get to 9th. That's what we wanted him doing. Same thing with track. And in track, it was obvious if we had sometimes your varsity has got some older kids on it and stuff like that, and you may win district with that, but then you don't have anything behind. We judged how our football season was going to be on our JV track team, because that was where all your sophomores and juniors were. And we could tell if we had a good track season, we finished top in the district or second in the district, we were going to finish one or two in the district in football. And that's just how that went, and it was always true. We had some guys. I mean, and everybody always goes, "Oh, they had all these guys." They were the same guys they had before. We were just doing a better job of developing them.
What about
we did have guys, Robert Griffin III. Robert played quarterback for us, but he was at that time more of a track guy playing football. The thing with Robert is he never quit getting better. He continued to work to get better at football. He was a natural track athlete. I mean, he worked hard at it, but he was great at track. But he kept working on the football all the way through college and into the NFL. But that foundation was set by our head coach.
And was in the 90s, did Texas have athletic block or athletic period during the day where kids would strength train during the day, or did that come later?
No, they had it at that time. What they didn't have that came around in about 01 or 02 was summer strength and conditioning. You weren't allowed to, after track season or whatever season you were in was over in the spring, you were really not allowed to.
I heard of that.
But you could do it through summer track. We had summer track, and what I did when I was at Florence was we didn't have summer track, but I started a USA weightlifting club.
Nice.
And we trained, and you're allowed to train them, and we would take them to meets and stuff like that. And that's where I don't know if you know who Jody Vaughn is. She was an alternate on the 04 Olympic team, multiple-time world team member, was married to Chad Vaughn.
I know Chad, Texas guy.
Yeah, well, he's actually from Oklahoma, but they lived in Texas because that's where she was from. But she was one of my athletes at Florence that we used Olympic lifting to train for track. She finished 4th in the state in the 100 meters her senior year, and then she wanted to continue on competing in Olympic lifting. And I'd really, at that time, I was new to Olympic lifting. I'd taken the USAW. Back then it was called the club coach course, and I had taken that. And but I'd gotten there about as far as I could with my technical proficiency at that time and stuff. This was 1997, 98. And so I looked for a local coach that was there, and I hooked her up with Ursula Garza. At that time it was Ursula Garza Ketchko. She was married to Oleg Ketchko, who had gone through the Soviet sports system, but now it's Ursula Garza Papandreou, but they were her coaches, and she was a multiple-time world team member and alternate in the '04 Olympics.
What was your, mentioning USAW or going through club coach now? They also have like the sports performance cert. What do you prefer? What do you like best, like with the methodologies that USAW teaches in those two different certs?
Well, really, they're the same cert for the most part. Now I believe now they have a level 1 and a level 2. Back then they had club coach, and then they had the next level up was senior coach. And to be a senior coach or even take the course, you had to produce national caliber lifters. The senior course now, or the senior coach, is not recognized as the national level coach. So now they have level 1, level 2, and then to get the national level, which is really just an extension of level 2, you have to have national caliber lifters.
Competitors. I love that. You've got to produce results. Coach, did you in the earlier years at the other schools work in a school where the strength and sports performance was not during the day, where there was no athletic block, but it had to be done after school?
Well, when I first started in Arizona, that's how it was. You didn't have an athletic period. So I trained them, after school. And, back in those days, I mean, we went to the playoffs at my old high school my first year there. And both my first year and then my second year, we didn't have a real good year, but I'd have like 10 kids lift after school, and that was it. I mean, the rest of them, you couldn't make them come, and they didn't want to do it, so they didn't do it. I had about 10 kids, and most of those kids went on and played for us. Then 2 years later, I went to the junior college, and they came on and played for us there, and wound up being very successful as well. But yeah, it was there. You just had to. You couldn't make them come. And now here in Texas, it's you still have an athletic period, but one thing that they've done is pretty cool. After COVID, because COVID was such a mess with timing and stuff like that, they've allowed you, the UIL now allows you an hour a day before school or after school to train. So because like a lot of schools, like our school that I'm at now, they consolidated all the athletic periods basically into 2 periods. Well, when I was at Del Valley and had a 10,300 square foot weight room that was with 32 racks, I could train all the female athletes in first period simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
I have different programs. Their coaches had to help me, but I had different programs, but we had the space. And we trained boys 4th hour and then freshmen the last period. At the school I'm at now, we've got an undersized, it's about a 3A facility. It's not very big. It's got 20 racks, probably should only have 15 space-wise. Then we have another weight room about a third of a mile away down on the main campus. I can't be at both places simultaneously, obviously. But they, it'll hold about 30, and ours will hold safely about 55. Well, we have football, boys basketball, and wrestling first period. And so the wrestling and basketball have to share down there, and the football primarily takes the room down by the stadium. And then in sixth period is all freshmen. Well, you have all your freshmen that play. I have to spread them between 2 weight rooms, and again, I can't be multiple places.
Who's at the other weight room? The sport coach?
The sport coach. And so I try to train, because even if you have a strength coach on your campus, and this is a thing I think that people misunderstand. Well, strength coach, well, here you go. Here's my guys. I'm going to go have a free period. No. If I was at a Division I school or whatever, I'd have myself, an assistant strength coach, at least 1, maybe 2 or 3. I'd have GAs. I'd have student assistants who handle everybody. Well, in high school, you have 1 strength coach, 2 if you're really lucky. But if you have the 1, and I've got 60 athletes, I can't coach all of them simultaneously. So those coaches have to help. And so some places get that and some don't.
Right. I'm some of my groups could be 50 to 80. And in New Jersey, what we struggle with is everything is this optional BS. And it really hurts us because after school, kids, it's optional to go. We can't say mandatory. I don't know if you saw in the news, but a North Jersey. I'm in like Central Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
North Jersey, a small school, Group 1 with like 30 something kids on the team. That coach was basically fired for, he may have used the word mandatory, but saying, hey, if you're on a football team, you're going to be strength training. And so administration said, listen, some parents complained, and you should kind of take those ideas and take them to a private school. So in New Jersey, a lot of the private schools are kind of winning because they don't see how you have athletic block. New Jersey is decades behind the times of saying this is what we need to do to really get to the athletes before they could decline training after school. Or really, I mean, coach, to me, the big thing as a dad, a fellow dad, I just look at it common sense. Hey, if my kid wants to play football, he is absolutely strength training to put on muscle. And so I've seen a lot more injuries the past few years, more serious injuries. And I wonder if you guys don't see a uptick in injuries just because strength training is what you guys do, period, end of story.
I think you're always going to have
Yep.
some, but I think the better your situation of having people train and train properly, you have less. Like when I was at Del Valley, the school I was at previous to this one, I walked in and I could see right off the bat that I knew what issues were going to be there because they, had some kyphosis in the T-spine. They had no posterior chain. That, I mean, guys with crack at the bottom of their back, no butt,
Yep.
That stuff. And I went into the trainer and I said, hey, what are you seeing? And he said, well, we got a lot of shoulder injuries. Well, I could tell that from the kyphosis. We have, posture. We're having some ACL stuff, low backs. I said, I obviously. So I put in my programming immediately wasn't to correct one or two people. It was to correct the masses. And so did a lot of prehab type stuff, working on the really the posterior chain total body, legs and upper. And within, I was there 3 years, and by the end of the first year, we had a lot of it corrected. By the end of the second year, we had very, very few injuries because they had never trained that way before. When I got to Harker Heights, they'd had a strength coach beforehand. He did a pretty good job. The thing that I saw that we had a little bit more of, we had a lot of tendinopathy in the knee.
Yep.
And that was from not necessarily a lot of quad strength, especially VMO. So I started doing some stuff there. We got a lot of that rectified, but we've been really fortunate. And sometimes you can do all the right things and you're going to have injuries.
Yes.
But I think we've been fortunate in that regard. Girls basketball had a number of them my first year here. I started working with them. I think they had one maybe on one knee. But the rest of them are healed up. The one girl's come back. She's doing really well right now. Our football, we had my first year here. We had, and this was by a guy who trained really hard, had a knee, just a freak deal. Then he got it back and it went again. He was pole vaulting at the district meet, 11 weeks after surgery or 16 weeks after surgery. And then one falling through a crack between the pads and tearing it again, but he finished out and went on going to area. But then that was just freak things. We haven't had a lot of injuries, shoulders or legs in football or basketball over the time. And I think that's just how we're training.
Yeah, your training, if I look at it, we see amazing posture and position. My buddy John Wellborn always talks about that. He's in Austin, played in the NFL 10 years. But I see your kids always squat deep, whether it's front or back squat. Usually when I watch somebody back squat, they go heavy, they stop the depth. Your athletes, there's consistency. So when I see consistency, I know a great program. Beautiful overhead squats. See you doing isometrics, iso hold lunges with overhead mobility. And I also see you not leaning into one or the other, meaning I see sumo deadlifts, I see benching. So I see weightlifting, powerlifting. I see basically great sports performance. My question would be, you were talking about the one school when you saw like these deficiencies, no posterior chain, and you said you kind of fixed all that. I'm not sure what equipment you had available, if you had, back extensions, glute ham benches, sleds, or from what I see in this current school, squat racks, barbells, dumbbells. What were the go-tos to fix that one team with deficiencies and even maybe equipment that you had?
Well, that school they had just opened that facility in November. I took the job. I was their first ever strength coach. I took the job in June. It was a $22.6 million athletic facility. Locker rooms. They had walk-in hot tub, walk-in cold tub. They had indoor 80-yard indoor facility. We had 32 racks in the weight room. I had, I think, 12 or 13 glute ham raises. I had dumbbells. I mean, pretty much everything I had or everything I needed, I had. And then when I got there were some things like I like doing step-ups, weighted step-ups and stuff like that. So I was able to buy a 18-inch plyo box, metal plyo box for each rack. I was able, anything, if I needed, because I went in there and I said, hey, I need a budget. Yeah, and they said, what do you need? I said, well, we just got a new weight room. I said, yeah, but there's certain things, I need bands and things, parachutes that are, and they said, what do you need? And I told them, they said, okay, well, just order it. And I was like, okay.
That is
And
amazing.
so, yeah, there I had a lot. And on top of that, I had great administrative support. Our athletic director, when I went in on the interview and I explained, hey, you can bring me in here, you can bring whoever in here, but if you don't have help from the sport coaches, it's a losing battle. And so I had great help from her in the regards of, she told everybody, hey, you're going to do what he says when he says how he says, and you're going to help him. And and then I went in and told him, hey, I'm not here to take anything away. I'm here to be a support for you, but I need your help. And they did. I mean, every coach was great, learned my system, learned my terminology, and were very supportive.
Have you ever been in a school, speaking of like supportive administration, supportive coaches, have you been in a school where you didn't have that? Like, what is some of the traits of a great team / administrative support team?
I've been in Texas. I've been in 4 schools. The small one I started in, and most of that stuff either, I found a way to buy or build the equipment, most of it. They were, like I said, a smaller school. Their ag department got whatever they wanted. Athletics did not, but that was just because, now they're in defense of that, their ag department has a meats lab that is totally self-supportive. Sells cuts of meat, all that kind of stuff, and trains people to go on and have a career in the meat cutting business.
In school, in a high school,
yeah,
a public school,
high school, public school. But they didn't support athletics greatly. When I was at Copper's Cove with Coach Wells,
feel though with that, coach, with a lack of support, how did you make it work?
I mean, I'd get people to pitch in, and like we built. That's when I had the USA Weightlifting Club. So basically, they had a couple squat racks already and a couple benches. We built all our platforms, and we had 5 platforms in there. We bought some, with his budget money, we bought bumper plates. My AD head football coach, he was extremely supportive. We started the powerlifting program from scratch. He was very supportive, but we just didn't have, and we had parents that picked in stuff like that, but we didn't have a lot of financial support administratively. When I went to Copper's Cove, the school I was at for 20 or 19 years, I had a budget. I had powerlifting budget, and when I used whatever I didn't use in that, I swept into my weight room budget, and I had a weight room budget, and I was able to, and then we had great booster club as well. I was able to get pretty much whatever I needed in there. And we had I had a 9,600 square foot weight room there. That was before the weight room wars were starting up with everybody having to have all the fancy equipment. We built everything in 5s there. So I had 5 squat racks that were really heavy duty, 5 benches, 5 inclines, 5 glute hams, and I had 10 platforms. And then I had a set of dumbbells, and this was by accident. I was doing the budget, figuring it out, and I figured out a set of dumbbells from 10 to 100 pounds to share between the bench and the incline. So we had a bench and an incline, bench and incline. So one rack for each. Well, then I said, well, I wonder what it would cost if I did two. So I figured it out. Well, I got the two spreadsheets messed up, and I ordered the one with the 10 to 100 pounds for 10 racks, 10 benches, 5 benches, five. And we had the money to cover it, and it was great. And then I wound up having eventually over time, getting another set of dumbbells from 10 to 100 that we could do. You could have another station do military or I mean, dumbbell press or whatever. But that was a great situation there. I had whatever I needed. When I was at Del Valley, that school I was just mentioning, they just opened a $22.6 million facility. I had whatever I needed.
This school that you're at now looks like old. I'm not even sure what brand those squat racks are. They have those like interesting J hooks. It's older, but I mean, so you've been in places that are what's that?
Pro Maxima is the brand.
Oh yeah, that's what it looks like. That's an older brand. And what's interesting is like, I just love it. Like you've been at schools with these multi-million-dollar facilities, and now you're in a weight room and everybody's training amazing. It shows, you know, your coaching skills. You know, coach, are you ever thinking to yourself, my God, I don't have enough bumper plates? What's like, you're in a school where the equipment's old. So what's the mentality behind that, not letting it slow you down?
Well, I think if you're as a strength coach, so each one of those places Florence a 2A, Copper Cove 5A with a big weight room, Del Valley's weight room was bigger than Cove's, and it had nice equipment and stuff. And then now I'm at Harker Heights, and we've got the big facility's probably 2,000 square feet. I think strength coach, no matter what your situation, even when I went from Cove to 9,600 square feet to Del Valley with 10,300, my concepts remained the same, but I had to change how I went about doing it, because we had 5 benches, 5 squat racks, 10 platforms, 5 inclines. Everything was in 5s at Cove. Here at Del Valley, we had 32 racks. We had all these dumbbells. We had everything. Now I'm here at Harker Heights, and we've got 20 racks, and we don't have hardly, our dumbbells are really slim. And so you've got every one of those places, you have to go in there and you've got your concepts, you've got what you want to accomplish, but the logistics of it are going to change no matter what. And you have to get there with it's going to take you a minute. I mean, when I got to Del Valley, it took me about halfway through the fall semester to get things lined out how I wanted them. When I came to Harker Heights, same thing. We didn't have it. We don't, in a multi-school district, a lot of times you don't have, because if we get it, every other school has to get it.
I've heard that. Yep. Or I get it at this school, the school across town has to get it. I see you using still, the kids are tracking on paper. Are you using any technology in there?
I use Rack Coach. I'd always just done everything on paper. When I went to Del Valley, they would use Rack Coach because they had 4th period athletics right before lunch, so they had a tight time frame.
What is the time frame of your blocks?
It's about between 42 and 45 minutes.
Okay.
We have to split because we have over 100 football players in our first period, so we have to split. So we do. One group is outside first doing their either speed work or X Factor. We do feed the cats type workout.
Yeah.
And then the other group is in the weight room, and then they switch. So it's about anywhere between usually 42 to 45 minutes.
What's outside? Turf or just pavement, parking lot?
We have a turfed area right outside of our field house. It's about 40 yards long by probably about 30 yards wide. When they redid the turf at the stadiums a couple times, they've taken that turf up and given each of the schools a turf area. And we use that. Now we go for our speed work. We go down. We have it's a stadium, but it's more sub-varsity level stadium. It's not where we play our varsity games. it's right down the hill. So we go down there to do our speed work because we have a full-size football field where you can spread out. And the turf's good. Up there on our turf field by the field house, that's where we'll do all of our X Factor type stuff, sled pushes, sled pulls, trap bar farmer carry, med ball work, Nordics.
What Coach, I think we were mentioning dumbbells earlier. I feel like dumbbells are such an underutilized tool. You just don't see them as much. Do you have a intro program with dumbbells for like your freshmen, or do you start kind of on real barbell basics and it's just the dumbbells as supplemental work? How do you integrate dumbbell training?
We don't have enough dumbbells or kettlebells to outfit the whole
Mm-hmm.
room. So we use them, but we're limited as far as like, in your weights that you use, like, somewhere between 20 and 40 pounds, you need about 5 sets of those because everybody's using
That's
those.
right.
We don't have that. We've got from 15 to 100, but we only have a couple sets of the mid-range ones. Same with kettlebells, but we'll use them during the period. We start off. That's one thing that I would say is hugely different from when I was at like a one horse town to multi-school district. Our junior high, we had really, really solid coaches at our junior high when I was at Copper's Cove. A lot of them had come up through our system as players. They learned the system that way. They went on and played in college or went to college, graduated, came back and were coaching at our junior high. They were young coaches, enthusiastic to learn. And I mean, I took it for granted. I had guys for years, they come up. I had a guy one year come up, he was 260-pound freshman offensive lineman, cleaning 275 as a freshman.
So the middle school has a strength and conditioning program?
At most of your schools, especially if they're a single high school town, they do. One of my former players, they just played in the state championship game for 4A Division I over at Kilgore, and he coaches football and track. He's a throws coach, and he coaches D-line, and he is in charge of all strength and conditioning from pre-athletics up through high school. So you have a lot of that in one horse towns. In your multi-district towns, sometimes it's hard. It depends. Like Denton ISD that has Geyer, and they've had 2 or 3 teams playing in the playoffs this year, and they do every year. Their junior highs are aligned with their high school. So like they have 2 junior highs that are going to go to Geyer, 2 that are going to go to Denton Ryan, 2 that are going to go to Braswell, and it's the same 2 all the time. And they get coaches down there and they coach. A lot of times, though, when you're in a multi-school district, it's hard. They may not have dual contracts. So, you can't, when you're on a dual contract, if you're not coaching to the right level, you can be gone. Teaching contract and everything. If you're not teaching right, you can be gone.
What do you mean not coaching right? Like not winning?
No, not like handling your business, not coaching the kids, not doing what the high school coach wants done.
Oh, nice.
Like when I was at Copper's Cove, if people weren't cutting the mustard, then we helped them pack. It's just here's the expectation, and boom, boom, boom. And we had great coaches. Sometimes in a multi-school district, they're not on a dual contract like that, so they can just say, "Well, I'm not coaching anymore," but they're going to squat on that teaching job, and it makes it hard. So sometimes it's a lot harder. You don't have as much control. In that situation, and even though Del Valle was a one horse town, I saw that there where a lot of the junior high guys were guys that had been around for a long time. They were from that area, and they did kind of what they wanted to do. So at Del Valle and since I've been at Harker Heights, we get them as freshmen and they're raw. So, when I was at Cove, I got them as freshmen, and they knew how to run our offense, our defense, and every sport. They knew how to clean. They knew how to squat. They had great technique, because they'd been well coached there. So it just kind of depends. I think at your multi-school, like what I do at our place is I developed because like in our school district too, we have 5 high schools, but there's only 4 schools that have weight rooms at the middle school. And those 4, they may not have anybody that really knows how to coach strength training at those places. So put together a program based on this body weight, kettlebells, stuff like that,
Yeah.
that can be executed even in the 7th and 8th grade.
Is it on your I forgot to mention, you have a website. I think it's buildschampions.com.
Yes,
So
sir.
people could reach out to you for consulting, distance programming. So how do you train up the middle school coaches, Reb? Do you bring them in and do like a hands-on clinic with them and check?
Well, I did that my first year here, and it kind of, I didn't think it was well received. I had more people telling me how this wouldn't work and that wouldn't work rather than finding solutions.
Yeah, why would they? Why would that happen? Just wrong people, wrong mindset.
Yeah, this don't want to work. In my opinion, don't want to work.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how I look at it. I call them check stealers. Because if you're there and you have a job, especially in athletics, it's about kids, and you need to do what you need to do to get the kids the best they can be. And that's true as a classroom teacher too. Don't get me wrong. So,
son, I tell kids, hey, you're lazy. Can you imagine if a teacher or coach was lazy? You don't like it. So lazy has it has no place. I also believe, Coach, I've been thinking about this a lot, like police have an oath, right, to protect and serve. I feel like coaches and teachers, we have kind of this silent oath. You don't get it out of the gate, but the oath should be do what is best for the kids. That's Kip Fulks commenting there. Big lacrosse guy. He was the co-founder of Under Armour. He's saying people want to win instead of develop. The development is painful. It's work. And he's right. He came up through lacrosse.
There's no doubt. And I think it varies because a couple of years ago, the school district asked me, we have an athletic department in service, and they asked me to put something together because we only have 4 schools that have weights and the rest of them don't, put something together that would help prepare the kids. And so I did. They gave me, I only had 30 minutes, but that was 30 minutes more than I'd had before. And I talked to every junior high, not just the ones that fed our school. Had a lot of people reach out to me about that, getting the PowerPoint. And then last year they asked us to do it again, and we have 3 other strength coaches in our district at that time, and I asked them to all be a part, and we all took a part on that, teaching something so that they could get involved, because a lot of those feeders feed their schools. And this year they've asked us to do a 4-hour professional development for all middle school and middle school PE and coaches.
I really think if you are in a contact combative sport, and that really includes basketball, soccer, these are very physical sports. I honestly, as a dad, not even a strength coach, it should be mandatory that you're doing strength training. I said to a buddy of mine, I said, man, Kip Fulks is going to be disappointed to hear this. I trained the lacrosse team. They didn't show up all year. They show up in season. And I said, 80% of them could not do one proper push-up. And so when I shared that with a buddy, he said, how do you get off the ground? You got to do a push-up. But it's interesting that I feel like culture statewide in Texas, it's understood that you need to be strong to compete in these sports. And it's crazy that that coach in North Jersey got fired for saying that strength training is highly expected. Maybe he used the word mandatory. So it's interesting to hear this backlash against it. I want to go back real quick, Coach. You were mentioning the multi-sport athlete. We're not seeing that so much in New Jersey. It's certainly getting less and less probably all around the country. But you mentioned sprinters, and I know wrestling is starting to build up in Texas. I have a friend that has a very good wrestling club, but Anthony Schlegel played football in Texas. He was also a state champ, and I think he was a D lineman. Do you have your big guys, do the big guys wrestle and the skill guys play basketball? Is there a certain system you try to encourage or that you're picking up on in the state of Texas?
I think think that happens a lot more in your smaller schools, but some like we've got some of our bigs and that are wrestling right now, linemen, couple defensive linemen, offensive linemen. We got an H-back that wrestles. Most of our, and we've got a couple guys playing basketball. Most of ours are going to play football and run track, or we've got some football, baseball guys too.
Okay.
So the biggest thing in wrestling, and I think as long as, like with the big guys, it's okay because they're not going to be cutting weight. But, sometimes you'll see guys and they're trying to cut weight, and then it's just the polar opposite for football. They need to gain weight.
Yep.
And so, that I think that as long as you've got a good relationship, we've got a new wrestling coach now, and he seems to be pretty good guy. That I just told him, I said, we could get more guys out, but if we think they're cutting weight, I guarantee that isn't going to work. And he said, we have this hydration test now, and they're not going to be cutting weight. They may have a pound or two on a Friday or Saturday before a meet. But I said, that's different. That's water weight. I'm talking about dropping 2 weight classes and stuff like that.
Well, that hydration test is only done in the beginning of the year, and kids are still cutting weight to do that. I've just always felt like, if I want football players to join the wrestling team, then I need to prioritize the weight room and no cutting weight and make sure that I am complementing their football, not taking away from it. But it's sometimes strange when coaches are just utilizing, you've been around much longer than me, but I still see coaches today, it's almost 2025, doing what I did in 1989, cutting weight, distance running, circuit training with lightweight in season, when I always said wrestling practice is your circuit training. So now you got to do strength work. Well, let's dig into some of the training, because I think there's like a time limit on the Instagram live, Coach. So your workouts are about 45 minutes, half in the weight room, half in the track. I saw like a recent video. I don't know if it's normal that you do circuit training to save time, but they were doing overhead squat. They were doing overhead lunge iso hold. I can't remember what else I was seeing in that video, but how do you try to organize the room so it flows, yet also with time management?
Well, that's where that rack coach comes in really good. We do everything in rotations. So it's almost like a giant set on everything we do, even on our major lifts. But what I try to do, like what that video you saw, was like what I call our technical refinement. So they're working on squat depth. We're working on the iso lunge, working on that quad strength to eliminate tendinopathy. We're doing some, that's primarily a knee health rotation. Then we go to the next rotation with squats. On our day 2, it'll be front squat. On our day 4, it'll be back squat. And then with that one, following the squat, it's going to be an upper body, could be a military press or whatever. So we're going to go squat, and then our other 2 exercises in that rotation are going to be shoulder health. So we're going to be doing rotator cuff work and then push-ups. And
okay.
That'll prepare for the 3rd rotation, which is, whether it be on our leg day, it'll be shoulders. On our clean day, on that 2nd rotation, we would clean, and then we do rotator cuff and we do push-ups. And then our 3rd rotation would be a horizontal press, either incline or bench or whatever. And then that's tied in with upper back movement, rows, TRX rows, things of that nature.
What's how many rounds of work would you get on a main lift with this? Like, you got about 25 minutes. So let's say I see you guys doing power clean from the floor. How many sets of that power clean do you think they're getting doing all this other stuff?
Well, we get on a rotation, like, for example, before Christmas here, we were getting three sets of cleans, 3 sets of rotator cuff, 3 sets of push-ups. Then we would go to our next rotation, which was horizontal press. You get 3 sets of horizontal press, 3 sets of upper back pulling, rowing, and then the other guy was a spotter, so he's recovering. Then the next rotation is a supplemental, whatever supplementals I have, usually some back, some posterior chain type stuff. When we get back from break, our primary lift, like say for example on day one is a heavy clean day
Yep.
for us. We'll get 4 to 5 sets of clean. We'll get 4 to 5 sets on the others as well.
My question was at first, do you ever think the 3 sets is not enough volume to get strong from a main lift, but then you're getting up to 4 or 5 sets?
Yeah, it's when we're just coming out of, we focus on, and we start our off season, we're really focused on movement and making sure that they're doing all the little things right. And so I have to stop the clock on occasion to coach and whatnot. So we only do 3 sets of each exercise in the rotations before Christmas. After the break, our main lift on day one will be a clean variation. We'll get 4 sets there. Our secondary lift on that is a horizontal press. We may only get 3, but the volume will be high. We'll go 12, 10, 8 plus. Yes. They could be getting anywhere from 30 to 34 reps, nice. Which is, you're still getting some hypertrophy out of it. And that's how we'll do that. And then on our day 3, we're only going to do 3 sets on our clean variation, and it's going to be dynamic effort and technical in nature. That's our that's our max effort bench day, and we'll get 4 to 5 sets there.
When you max effort bench, coach, are you working up to, at, let's say, I don't know what kind of, like, if you're running a mini cycle, is it a 5-3-1, or what's like the heaviest and the rep range you hit near the end?
It's it's undulating at the first 4 weeks, and then we go to the 5-3-1. So when we get back, it'll go, the first week it'll be 8s for 8 plus up to 12 reps. Second week will be 6 plus up to 10 reps on the last set. Then it'll be 8 plus up to 12 on the third, and then it'll be 6 plus again for that first month of January.
Okay.
And the percentages will undulate. So it'll go 65, 75, 70, 80. We'll undulate there. And then when we come back in February, when February starts, we'll go to the 5-3-1.
I love it. So I love a lot of coaches, I think, when they're not knowledgeable enough, they dismiss utilizing that moderate rep range to build some body armor.
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole thing. And one thing about Coach Wendler that he talks about in this 5-3-1, he wants you getting all your reps, because the reps are where you get strong. So and I have to pull the calculator out and show the kids this all the time, but easy math. So you got 100 pounds on the bar, and you're supposed to get 8 reps, or so you're supposed to get 6 reps, and you get 6 reps, so you get 600 pounds. Well, then somebody else puts 115 on there thinking they're getting more, but they only get 4 reps.
Not enough volume.
They don't get as much tonnage lifted.
Yes.
That is going to equal tonnage lifted. So the more tonnage, if I'm lifting 600 and then I'm only getting so it'd be 4 and then 15, be about 500. I'm going to get 100 pounds less. I'm not going to get as strong as I am if I'm getting 100 pound more total tonnage lifted.
Yeah. It's like the kids need the volume to build that muscle. And also just, that's a big thing on how to get strong. Coach, I think we might have like 5 minutes before Instagram shuts the live off. Has there been any questions I should have asked you? Or, for example, somebody mentioned you spoke at NatCon for NHSCA. Do you ever feel like there's a question or 2 questions that coaches should ask you about, but they don't?
It depends what I'm talking on. Usually there's something, when I spoke at NatCon, I was talking about knowing your why. I am going to be speaking at the Glacier DFW clinic, the Iron Giants Strength Summit, Winter Strength Summit Tour. I'm speaking February 7th. So I'm speaking on my first presentation is part 1 of developing the athlete from junior high to college. And then the next session will be right after that is part 2. So it's the first part's about middle school through 8th grade, incoming 9th grade, and the last one is from 9th grade on through till they get out.
What's that seminar called? I'm gonna link it up when I post this.
It's the Glazier Clinic. They have clinics all over the country for football primarily, and this one, there's one this year in Texas, one in Dallas, one in Houston, one in San Antonio. They're on different days, and then this year Iron Giants is hosting. They have a winter tour strength summit, and they're hosting speakers. And so I'm speaking at the DFW. I think myself and Nico Summerfield are speaking at that one, and then I know Elton Cochran is speaking at the Houston one on that same tour, and then they'll have somebody in San Antonio. But they do them all.
This is locked in on strength training.
So that's all it is. And they wanted me to talk primarily about strength training as it relates to football. So I'm talking about developing the athlete from 6th grade pre-athletics through their graduating and their senior year.
What's maybe that'll be my question to you before we shut it down. When you think of strength training specific for football, what's these like 1, 2, maybe 3 things that you are really like, hey, this has to be incorporated?
I believe you have to have, I mean, a power sport's a power sport. Track, volleyball, but anytime you throw an implement, swing an implement, high-speed collision, soccer, all those. I think with football, the big thing is you've got to focus on muscular balance around the knee joint and the shoulder joint, because it's a high-speed collision sport, and your body takes a beating. So you've got to make sure that your shoulder joint is stable. You've got to have good musculature around it, and then obviously you've got to develop power. I'm an Ole guy. I like cleans. There's some people that don't agree with that, and that's fine. They rather do trap bar stuff or whatever. And I think whatever you're comfortable with and you believe in, that's what you got to do. I've been a clean guy for 35 years, and so that's what I base our power movement, because I believe that with the clean, you'd only develop the power triple extension, but when you catch the bar, you're absorbing force, and that's very important in football.
Crazy that, I always laugh when somebody's like, hey, you don't got to clean. You could get the same effect from throwing a med ball. You cannot. I mean, I'm catching 185, 225, or some kids, like you're saying, 275 or more. It's not the same as throwing a 20-pound med ball. It's never the same. And what we're seeing more of is kids are afraid of contact. And so cleaning and absorbing the force of the bar builds confidence. And there's a different psychological confidence somebody gets. There's just no, people are going to hate me for saying this. There's no way I'm building the same confidence throwing a medicine ball as I am catching a clean. But I can do other things. Like I see you doing sumo deadlifts. We don't do it as much. We used to do tire flips and more of the strongman training. We probably need to get back to some of that. But I felt like some of our best football players were they knew how to be kind of violent with training.
Yeah. And again, but you got to go with what you believe in, and
Agreed.
And if somebody doesn't believe in the Oles, I don't. That's them. I'm not going to try and convince them otherwise, and it's pointless for them to try and convince me otherwise, because I've been doing it for this long, and I'm going to stay with what I believe in.
Yeah, I love that. Your cleans look amazing from the floor. A lot of coaches don't understand power clean from the floor, power clean, hang power clean from above the knee. We pull from above the knee. I do a hang power clean. But I love the technical proficiency I see of your athletes in that bottom position. Like I could tell you've put a lot of work into that. That is not easy.
Yeah, we work on our pulls, and I'm a believer in, like you said, those full squats. Yeah, I got that from Chad Bond. He said, what happens if you're catching it at 90 every time and you're good with that? What happens in football, for example? I took it to football. What happens if you never go below 90 and then you get forced below 90? Well, then what is you're hurt? So that's why we train deep. That way you're comfortable in the bottom no matter what happens.
I look at it especially in wrestling, we see the style of wrestling has changed. It's, very like putting in precarious positions. And I always say, if you're in an uncomfortable position, you're going to give up that position, and then, you're going to get